Hi, this is Kasian, and it's time for our weekly conference call at VectorspaceAI. We'll start with what's happening around the world, and Associated Press is reporting, in his most forceful pandemic actions and words, President Joe Biden on Thursday ordered sweeping new federal vaccine requirements for as many as 100 million Americans in an all-out effort to increase COVID-19 vaccinations and curb the surging Delta variant. Next, on the industry side, VentureBeat is reporting what Databricks' $1.6 billion in funding means for the enterprise AI market. So if you're not following the company Databricks, it would be worth following. That company is upstream from ours. Next, the MIT Technology Review is reporting Meet Altos Labs, Silicon Valley's latest wild bet on living forever. Founders of a deep-pocketed now rejuvenation startup are said to include Jeff Bezos and Yuri Milner. And in quotes, last October, a large group of scientists made their way to Yuri Milner's super mansion in Los Altos Hills above Palo Alto. They were tested for COVID-19, they wore masks, and as they assembled in a theater on the property for a 2-day scientific conference, others joined by teleconference. The topic? How biotechnology might be used to make people younger. Next, we've got themes and events. The chip shortage keeps getting worse. Why can't we just make more? That's a topic we've revisited under themes and events, and the supply chain issues related to the chip shortage are not getting any better. And this is a theme, this is a global event that we all need to keep our eyes on if we're going to trade it. Next, we've got mRNA vaccine solutions, therapies, and we've got mRNA cancer therapies. These cancer therapies are in the news again, and they'll be in the news for quite a while, so we view this as a long-term theme. This theme relates to all of biosciences, and in fact relates to what we do in space biosciences. Disinformation, astroturfing, and influence campaigns are on the rise, and this means that any theme related to cybersecurity and disinformation campaigning would be something to investigate. Next, we've got our corporate side, and we are continuing to engage in our capital raise. That's steady as she goes. Everything in HR relates to new hiring, and on the legal side, everything is in process. Under engineering, product, QA, and ops, under our financial markets section, we've got S&P, and S&P Global requires more data integration related to time and sales data, and that relates to slippage calculations that we need. And that also relates to tuning our demos for the trading show this October. We've also got more meetings lined up with S&P next week related to further data integration. Once we have everything nice and settled, we'll begin to talk about the showcasing of the datasets. And then Morningstar. Again, we've got data integration for Morningstar and tuning Morningstar's data for the trading show, and additional meetings with Morningstar next week, which will be talking about our summarization model, and we'll also be talking about showcasing of datasets. Next, we've got our Space Biosciences section under Engineering, Product, QA, and Ops. And UCL, University College of London, this is a collaborator of ours that we are still in talks with. We're firming up our agreement with them, so we're going to be collecting more details from them. We have a few more things, a few more I's to be dotted and T's to be crossed on that relationship. But it's moving along quite nicely. And next we've got ICL, or Imperial College of London. And we'll be talking more about Imperial College of London, their life sciences division, under strategy. And We have a general section that we're going to include under engineering, product, QA, and ops. And the general section is going to include products and operations that relate across our platform or across industries. So engineering operations that apply across knowledge domains. And one of them is summarization. So summarization, for example, applies to financial documents, reports. Summarization also applies to scientific papers in life sciences or any scientific papers. Summarization can also apply to objects, not just text. When it comes to summarization modules, we are structuring an ensemble of summarization models. And in one ensemble group would include abstractive summarization, and in another ensemble group would include extractive summarization modules. We're primarily relying on our experimental models, our LB&L models, and those are extractive summarization models. We'll be combining them with abstractive summarization models. Abstractive summarization models can be risky. We're not going to get into the technical or algorithmic details. But what we will say is that we've got one customer, CSSI, who is very satisfied with our summarization module. And we also have a request that has come in from our legal arm. And as you might know, if you have a corporate counsel, they're typically pretty well connected to other corporate counsels. And our corporate counsel in particular is connected to the legal technology industry. We in fact founded a legal technology company a while ago, and this particular legal technology request that has come in relates to summarization, summarizing depositions. And if you look up what a deposition is, that would give you a good idea of how you might see that they need to be summarized. Summarizing depositions is something we've been asked to do in the past. We have models in place to do that, and we'll be rolling them out for this particular customer. This will also represent a different industry we'll be servicing, which will be the legal industry or the legal technology industry. And it would be important for everyone to look at the total addressable market associated to the legal technology industry. It's something that we've analyzed in the past. It's related to e-discovery. It's related to a lot of the legal technology work that's happening at Stanford University as well. So again, our summarization models are going to be produced for summarizing depositions or repurposed. Our new ones are going to be repurposed for summarizing depositions. We have our old ones. We'll see how they do. I'm sure they'll work just fine, but we want to integrate some of our new improvements. Next, we'll move on to customers, partners, and collaborators. And we've got Morningstar, S&P, and that's on the financial market side. And meetings scheduled next week, as we mentioned. We don't have any updates this week. We did touch on details that we'll be talking about next week with them. And it's really to ramp up primarily with the dataset side, the dataset offerings and summarization offerings. There's going to be a small percentage or lesser percentage related to data integration. And still under customers, partners, and collaborators, under the Space Biosciences side, UCL meetings next week, ICL meetings next week. CERN, everything is in progress. And we've got the general side, and again, we're under the customers, partners, and collaborators section. So we are going to be looking for likely either an MOU, memorandum of understanding, or LOI, letter of intent, related to our legal summarization of depositions related to that project. That will represent revenue for the company. Next, we'll move on to our corporate strategy, business development, corporate development, sales and marketing section. And this is going to be a quick one because everything is geared toward the trading show preparation. Next, we'll move on to exchanges, and we're going to be signing a deal with Efficient Frontier this week, and that will include market making and a few other things a few other services that we'll need to structure the right kind of financial and trading infrastructure for Datasets. They'll also manage some of our inventory across exchanges. And one of those exchanges is going to be KuCoin. That's going to be an exchange that is on our hot list. And that simply means that we have everything filled out. We are just waiting to hear back from them related to the application. And they have everything that they need and are happy with everything that they need. So it's just a matter of time at this point. All others are in progress. Next, we'll move on to investor relations, PR, and Marcom. And again, everything is in process here and surrounding the trading show. We are also going to be surrounding press related to our collaborators, UCL and ICL. And we'll talk more about that in just a bit. Because now we have questions from the trader base. Question 1, what's the update on the release of the paper that would carry instructions to holders of VXV to interact with the API? Well, that's an API spec, and we have several API specs. We have a few available on GitHub to access the basket generator, which would include being able to pass a global event or a theme and then receive an unfiltered list of either stocks or cryptos. And we have several docs available. Those docs are sent to some of our customers on trial right now, for example. We have other docs that are being sent to other customers, and we've got a general doc as well. Those are available today to developers. So if you'd like to request one, just feel free to make contact with us. Question 2, would VXV ever think of building on the DAG ecosystem to have zero fees and the ability to connect to any chain with interoperability? That might be an option for us. Right now we are focused on our institutional customers, and that means that any kind of partnership with an ecosystem like DAG would be future. Question 3, how is OpenAI and Vectorspace similar and different in technology? This is a good question, and it's complex, so there's a lot of detail to it. I'll try not to go into too much detail. I'll try and simplify things as much as possible. If you have any follow-up questions, though, feel free to contact us. But when you look at what OpenAI does, and you look at what we do, we both operate in the language modeling space. When you look at the language modeling space, you can look at it in terms of natural language processing or named entity recognition, in very simple terms, rudimentary ways like that, or in terms of natural language generation, being able to predict what the next word might be to generate a sentence or generate prose or poetry. And that's natural language generation. When you look at natural language understanding, that's connected to symbols and their meaning, and more connected to computational neuroscience, computational cognition, and computational linguistics. The closer you can get to computational neuroscience and computational cognition and linguistics, the better. You're getting closer to mimicking human cognition at that point. So our focus is more on the NLU side, understanding the meaning behind a symbol, and a symbol can be a word or an object. It can be a gene sequence or a protein sequence. It can be a stock symbol or a crypto symbol or a human. So when you look at what we do versus what OpenAI does with GPT-3, We use language models to predict. But before we make a prediction, we extract vectors from language models. But before we extract vectors, before the language models are language models, we construct the vectors. And how you construct your vectors and how you calculate their attributes and score them, and then how you score your vectors for similarity, is what the big difference is between what we do and what OpenAI does. That's at the core. Question 4. I'm very fascinated by VXV and was wondering if those initial big partnerships, for example Microsoft, Amazon, CERN, brought up any follow-up assignments. Like, I found information about the initial approach for them, but none about the involvement and the current status of the specifics of the partnerships. Maybe you can shed light on that. Certainly. So we provide updates related to partnerships in our conference calls. And if you go back to our conference calls, you can see the progression of certain partnerships. Certain partnerships have been put on hold or on ice. We've eliminated certain partnerships, such as the one with Amazon that you referred to here. One of the reasons for that was Amazon has been known to lift or steal code from their partners, and we can't risk that. Our customers simply wouldn't allow it. So we decided to stick with a small group of partners, but very large and powerful group of partners, and as many publicly traded partners as possible. When you look at our partnership with Microsoft, it's on the Azure space side, and it relates to storing datasets, and it relates to conducting experiments with the HP computer, the spaceborne computer 2. When it comes to partnerships related to PubGene or the National Library of Medicine, PubMed, when you look at partnerships in the life sciences space, our partnerships are primarily related to long-term research efforts or basic research, and that would relate to our name being associated to a published paper or published work of some kind. When you look at what we're doing with CERN, that relates to basic research, and CERN or ourselves are not going to be making any public announcements related to any progress until we come to a milestone that we are both satisfied with. When it comes to S&P Global, we are operating at their speed, and that is something that you'll find that we do with most of our large customers, potential customers, partners, revenue sharing distribution partners. We also have to make sure that we meet certain criteria along the way, and that includes data integrations before we can have our data set showcased, for example. Partnerships also relate to achieving certain levels of trust and satisfaction, and that goes both ways, and that takes time. Our partnerships are also gauged by the engineering resources we have available. So partners will work at the speed of potential partners or customers, and we'll keep that in parity with what we're capable of doing on the engineering side. When we'll provide updates as they come along. The best kind of updates we feel that can be provided are from our partners themselves when they're ready. But we can guarantee you that you'll be hearing you will be hearing from our partners and collaborators, and these are world-renowned institutions and companies, household names. Question 5. I was listening to Lex Friedman's podcast with CEO Wojciech Zaremba, and he is mentioning the difficulties of data understanding. Does that mean they haven't cracked the code that Vectorspace has? Well, data understanding can come in many different forms depending on the context, or depending on the knowledge domain somebody might have that's trying to understand the data, or depending on the pre-training a model has had, or the a priori data a machine has. When it comes to what we do with data, it's not what other organizations are used to doing with data. So when you compare what we do with data, it's usually an apples to oranges comparison. Just like groups used to compare Facebook and Apple, completely two different companies. When you look at what we do with data and the way data is described today when it comes to gaining an understanding of it, the very first thing to do is understand that we operate with matrices. These are rows and columns. It's the data set. We operate with vectors. So if a data set is not being operated with, and if someone is using the term data without using the term data set or making that differentiation, we can't really move forward from there in terms of a comparison. That's where it starts, is an understanding of the difference between data and a data set. Because that's where the intelligence gets extracted from. That's where the edge gets extracted from, is the data set. That's how the machine learning or AI operation happens, by ingesting a data set. That's the fuel. So when it comes to data understanding, that the first requirement for data understanding is the generation of a data set. So at any rate, we can talk more about that later. Just go ahead and send any questions or comments you have related to that online. Question 6. When people ask about exchange listings in the past, the common answer from the admins and the team was that the team was focused on consequential revenue and target group is not retail, which is correct and understandable. However, most recently, Ted said that the team is looking into KuCoin or Gate.io as near-term listing targets, while Kraken is a long-term target. So does that mean the strategy mentioned in the conference call is to go first with customer deals, consequential revenue, before exchange listings changed? So the strategy has not changed. We have adapted to the market, and we had adapted to the way the market changes, or changes in the market. And that includes doing two things at once. And that would be, of course, our primary objective, achieving consequential revenue. And that would include, as mentioned, customer deals. And at the same time, in tandem, pursuing exchange listings. As mentioned, we're doing that now. Question 7. Why are you keeping your code base private? I keep getting told it's to protect the secret sauce, but are you not already protected by patents and lawsuits? First off, lawsuits don't protect you from anything. And when you file a patent, you first file a provisional patent, and then there you are publishing everything you know about your secret sauce. So patent protection for us, does our current algorithm set and technology set, most of it is not patent protected. Most of it we keep as a trade secret, because we are not in the business of giving away money. Just like Coca-Cola was not in the business of giving away its secret formula. We have black box requirements from customers. Customers are not interested in us giving away our code. Customers are not interested in us giving away our code integrated with their code. You'll find that data engineering pipelines are where the alpha is, and that would include recipes and parameters that are stored related to how your data engineering pipeline is configured for particular events or trading systems or scientific discoveries. So the recipe, how your data engineering pipeline is configured during the construction of a data set, is something that we include in the data provenance, governance, and lineage model. Question 8, have you looked into limb regeneration, like a crab regrouping a claw or a starfish regrowing its leg? Yes, we have. We are looking into a variety of animals, and that includes tardigrades. Octopi includes jellyfish, mole rats, elephants, and of course tissue regeneration is a large part of space biosciences. Question 9, can we get a live feed for Kasian's talk in Chicago? If not, can we get a video posted on YouTube? Yes, we will have archives posted as soon as possible. We'll put them online as fast as possible. Question 10, Kasian, what is your take on Coinbase versus the SEC? Knowing you had an interest to list on Coinbase in some future. We don't comment on ongoing litigation. However, we do have experience with multi-billion-dollar litigation in the United States. And we do understand that the SEC or any group, similar regulator, or actually any group on the other side of a suit, or on the other side of a potential suit, might trigger a lawsuit to spur regulation along. However, we can't comment on anything related to the litigation. We don't have the details in it and are not qualified to comment. We can, however, mention what we read in the news and observe based on other commentators. And that's about it. Question 11, will the bought back tokens be frozen for a locked time, or will these in the future also be used for lending by the company? And how is lending going to be rewarded? 50% buyback might be a big supply to lend to others and will probably give high rewards. How do these balance out? Well, first, we are not going to be lending to anybody. We are not an organization that lends. That has nothing to do with what we do. We create value, and of course, if you acquire VXV, the VXV utility token, that provides you with access to the value, the high value data set. And when we buy back tokens, they will be placed in a treasury, and that is because we value them. Question 12. Have you ever thought about migration to another blockchain that is faster with cheaper transaction fees? I think it would be easier for the small holder like me to move the asset around. Yes, it would definitely be easy to trade. And this is something we have to do. We have to make the transaction costs, we have to minimize them. One of the reasons for that is that we want machines to be trading with one another. And once machines begin to trade with one another, there's going to be a lot more transactions. And that would mean that transaction fees should be lowered and can be lowered. So we'll be looking to do that. But we'll also be looking to roll our own chain as well. Looking at the implications of that, conducting an analysis of that, it has not completed yet. Next, we'll move on to strategy. And under strategy, I have a note here related to the investment club. And we are waiting for legal sign-off on this. We are also looking into a relationship with another asset manager or another fund And that fund will provide the instruments and the packaging that we need so that we can service everyone in the investment club. We found out that there are limits to the numbers of people that can join the club, so we are going to work around that by working with a larger institution that will create an instrument for us and a solution that will be able to service everyone so that trades can be executed. In the meantime, we have another interesting product that we're working on that we'll be announcing soon related to the investment club. Next, sell walls, order books, a second market. These are all things that we've noticed the community could be more familiar with. So we'd encourage people to take a look at the way the traditional markets have treated order books and sell walls. And that would mean looking at books related to written by perhaps Michael Lewis, Flash Boys, or Dark Pools. Because public market order books don't really work the way you think they do. Next, the trading show in Chicago. We're going to be mentioning VXV as a utility token used to access datasets. This is not something that we initially planned to do, but we are going to be talking about the requirement for holding VXV at the trading show. And finally, under strategy, we've got UCL and ICL here. University College London and Imperial College of London. University College of London is in process. We expect announcements related to what we're going to be doing in the next couple of weeks with UCL, University College London. We also expect announcements from Imperial College of London, and that's related to unique research highlights. And some of the details are included related to a collaboration proposal that we received from them, from their Department of Life Sciences there. And this comes from the Roos Lab, and it relates to a vision that they have. And I'll just read what the proposal says in brief here. Understanding complex interactions in biological membranes towards engineering new biomaterials and drug delivery systems using lipid-inspired molecules. The lab is headed by Dr. Sarah L. Rouse, SLR, whose expertise centers around integrative structural biology, combining high-resolution structural insight of biomolecules with dynamic information from computational molecular dynamic simulations. The lab is currently funded by UKRI, Future Leaders Fellowship. Motivation for the collaboration would be, number one, drug discovery. Novel drug targets in mitophagy pathways. The canonical mitophagy pathway, pink parkin, is well known due to links with Parkinson's disease. The pathway we study is independent of parkin and therefore represents a new direction for therapeutic strategies. The first two proteins being experimentally studied in the lab are NME4 of the NDPK family and OPA1, OPA1. OPA1 plays a crucial role in mitochondrial membrane fission and fusion. Expression levels of OPA1 have shown to be significantly altered during spaceflight. NME4 is a multifunctional protein with links to inflammation, mitophagy, energy production, and other things. A key focus of the research is understanding the role of cardiolipin, CL, the hallmark mitochondrial lipid, in modulating this pathway. Our early work shows CL mediates interaction of these two proteins. And in parentheses, there is a tilde with hidden link. Our goal is to find other hidden connections in this pathway, with the longer-term goal of mapping out as much as possible of the mitochondrial interactome to find new therapeutic strategies in longevity research and with extension to space biosciences research. We are working with collaborators to build a molecular 3D model of mitochondrion And their second motivation for collaboration would be materials engineering. And it continues, for materials engineering, we have some materials projects in development where we use cryo-EM and machine learning methods to analyze lipid nanoparticles and viral vaccine particles and the protective effects of DNA stability. And then there is included a bit of PR strategy related to inclusion in publications, and of course press releases from Imperial College of London, which we'll be talking more about in the future. So this concludes this week's call. We'll encourage everyone to join next week, as we'll have further updates on what's been discussed, and hopefully this will include a few solid PRs. Thanks for joining.